Hello there, my name is Wikinaro, and welcome back for another tier list. I got a new hat! Look at that! Ain't that cool? Figured I was wearing the one way too many. So this time, we're not yet on the creepypastas yet. I am starting to gather those. I've already had, one sent in, and I am looking at some others that I don't know about. But this one is, I'll say it's different. I mean, all of them are different. That's the point of them. This one is breakfast cereal mascots. So I've seen people do, breakfast cereal, like, taste test tier list things before. And I'm like, that's boring. That's so boring. You can't exactly... I mean, unless you have tasted the cereal with me, before, you can't exactly compare it, with what I'm comparing. And if I can't explain the taste well enough, then what's the point? But I was like, we can all appreciate their mascots. So what I did was I went on and I did my usual amount. I did research to pull a bunch of different mascots from different cereal brands, and the criteria for this time is how much do they make me want to eat the cereal. So you look at them and you go, you know what, this guy, he's selling his cereal well. And then I have just how they've changed over the years, if they've changed well or whatnot, or if they've not, or maybe, if there's absolutely no consistency within the changing of them, you can't see the direction in which the company is going. And then things like how well they stand out in the cereal aisle. So if you're to walk down the cereal aisle, there's hundreds of different types of cereals and whatnot, and you go, oh, this one stands out the most to me, I'm gonna grab this one or whatnot. I do have some other ones, some other random little things that I'll throw in there. Knockoffs, so if it's a cereal that's good enough to have a bunch of different knockoffs and whatnot, that might be play a factor in it. So let us start. And so I'm looking at this from, so if you didn't know, I was born in 98. So I grew up in the 2000s. I grew up as a kid in the 2000s. So even since then, cereal mascots have changed. They've changed a lot. So I was like, okay, I think that's what actually caused me to add this to my list. Was I was walking in the store one day and was like, what the hell did they do to this one mascot? I'm like, this is not what I remember from my childhood. But then you have people that are older than me that'd be like, well, that's not what I remember from my childhood. Because that's one of the things. You have to think of it as a kid. A lot of these, because I think, most of them, they're, sugary cereals. So it's that thing that you're gonna want to eat before school and whatnot. And if a kid looks at the box and is like, this is a bland, boring box, then I'm not gonna want to eat that. Why would I want to eat that? It's boring. So I guess we'll just start off with, oh, do these actually go in? I think these actually go in alphabetical order. Isn't that crazy? So we'll start off with Apple Jacks. So I actually have some notes on this one because most of you probably remember the different Apple Jacks. So the company started in the 1960s. This was our first mascot. It was the 60. He's just an apple, apple looking guy. I guess I didn't. So I should have watched the commercials. That's what I should have done. watch the commercials and seeing how weird they were, because I know old commercials are weird. He's just I guess a happy little fella. He's kind of interesting. His body's a little bit weird to me. He gives off he doesn't give off a lot of Apple vibes, and he doesn't necessarily, you know, I will say, yeah, if I were a kid in the 60s, I'd probably look at that and go, yeah, I want Apple Jacks. This happy little man makes me want to eat Apple Jacks. And then we move on to the 70s. For some reason, they've changed it. This is when I was talking about the like rebrandings. Apple Jacks was one of like the few in there that they've really rebranded a lot over the years. So for like the 70s and whatnot, the actual box. So a lot of this isn't the actual mascots on TV. It's the mascots on the box art. That's what I'm looking at a lot of. There are a couple of them that will be specifically mascots on like TV. Because I can't remember. I mean, you'd watch Saturday morning cartoons or whatever, and you'd see different cereal commercials or whatnot, and you'd be like, whatever thing came on, you know, whatever cereal came on, and you're like, I want that cereal. I absolutely want that cereal as 8-year-old little me or whatever. But this is just, I mean, they went from, for some reason, they kind of abandoned that whole, unless they kept him in the commercials, they for some reason abandoned our man, the Apple. They like got rid of him, and they have just these kids on it, these little, I guess they're fuzzy figures, which is interesting. Then along came the 1980s, and they completely got rid of the Apple. He was just gone for some reason. And they had a couple of different, this was just one of their examples, different clowns and other sort of characters like this, that they just got rid of them. I mean, they're weird for one. I don't have that, what is it? I don't remember what that fear is called. I don't have a fear of clowns, but I just think clowns try too hard. Maybe that's what it is. I don't like clowns because I think they try too hard. I know it is literally their job to be funny and whatnot and wacky and whatnot, but they just try too hard. And so it's just like, what is this? And then finally you move on to, we stuck with this through the 80s and the 90s and whatnot. And then we got to the 2000s, where I'm sure a lot of you guys know their names. It's the Bad Apple and Cinnamon. That's what I grew up with. That's what I remember, is the Bad Apple and Cinnamon. Absolutely love those commercials. They were great. They were amusing. I will say they're not as like wacky as some of the others, but what I'm gonna do is I'm going to rate today. You know what? Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll rate the ones from today, like modern ones, the ones from when I was growing up. So either, you know, the 90s and 2000s, and then the first one. So whatever I found came to be their first mascot. So because we have so many examples here. So since they brought back Mr. Apple, I like this little apple. He's a pretty simple little animation for the 60s. Looks like he's doing a little song and dance number. The box is very bland. I'll give you that. You look at the box and you'd be like, I don't know if I want that. Unless they did some magic where he hopped into the box, you know, and became a part of the box art. I'm gonna look that up actually. That's what a lot of these videos are, is just me doing both at the same time. Okay, yeah, no, that's right. the Apple Jacks art was just weird. So we had this little friend. We had a little friend. But then for some reason, the box art was horrifying. Look at that. I mean, I understand what they're going for, but it's horrifying. The box art is absolutely awful. I mean, they're trying to replicate our little friend here, but if you want to replicate our little friend here on the box art, then just have some caricature artist or whatnot put him on there. Otherwise, I'm not going to want to look at that and be like, I mean, it would stand out in the cereal aisle because it would be like, yeah, that I see that thing, but it's horrifying. I'm not going to want to pick it up and eat it. Good God, no. So I think for the 60s Apple Jacks, it's a little bit redeemed by its commercial because he looks like a little happy dude. I'm gonna have to give him overall because he just doesn't. He gets overthrown by his counterpart in the cereal aisle because that's like half your marketing. You've got your marketing on your TV and radio and whatnot, depending on what era you're in, and then depending on the time, a lot of your marketing will be in store. It'll be you go into the store and you'll see the product. They'll pay stores a premium to put up displays and whatnot, so that you can display your product more. Or you just have to hope people see it and go, this looks good, I'm gonna take this. Or that kids, see it, especially with breakfast cereals and whatnot. That's always your target audience, is whatever child audience you have to make your commercial to. But it always helps, I will say down the line, it always helps if you do get that little bit of, you manage to sneak that little information in for the parents that it's like, and it's healthy too. But 60s Applejack, I don't even think he was the bad apple then. He's gonna have to get a C. My guy, the cinnamon and the bad apple, he didn't even really feel like a bad apple. The thing was, the reason why he was the bad apple was they were always racing to get to the bowl of Apple Jacks. That was their whole thing. I mean, yeah, he did seem kind of like mean, but he wasn't that bad. He wasn't a bad dude. And they were like great dynamic duo, and I guarantee anyone my age probably knows the jingle. That's another thing, jingles. I could go through and do jingles because I could do an entire episode on different jingles for things, because jingles help sell things, because if you get that stuck in someone's head over, like, they're gonna want to go and see it, like they're gonna want to go and do it and whatnot. But I think these two, they had a great like dynamic with each other, and I think that earns them an A. Today, they are horrifying. They backstepped from the bad apple and the cinnamon to whatever this is. I'm assuming it was, I have to guess that it was probably a, because I want to say it happened during the time of rebranding for a lot of different companies, making sure that we're being more inclusive and not pushing forward like stereotypes. But they kind of, they just took away their personalities. Like these dudes, I mean, they're, if I look it up, they're literally the exact same on the box, they're horrifying. These guys are horrifying. They have literally absolutely no freaking personality. And if I were to watch a Apple Jacks commercial today, I guarantee I would be like, I don't want that thing in my house. Because I would wake up in the morning, open the cereal cupboard, and scream and slam it shut because those things are staring at me. They're awful. They're terrible. I have to give them a D. So, unless it's a thing, so minimalism has become, you know, the thing of the future and whatnot. I hate minimalism. I will fully say that I hate minimalism. There are some times I will say, so if you go and look through my, you don't even have to watch the videos, but go look through all the thumbnails that I've made. I've made so many thumbnails. Lots of them are not minimalistic. Some of them are. There are very few of them are, but that's because only they get the point across. They get that's what I want to do with my thumbnails, is I'm trying to capture the essence of the video within the thumbnail. That's what most people do. Well, I won't say that's what most people do, because you do have lots of clickbait artists, but that's what I try to do. But minimalism tears down things. It makes it like art is nothing anymore to me. So next up we have Buzz. Buzz is the name of our friendly bee from Honey Nut Cheerios. This is very specifically one of those ones that I was talking about when saying, like trying to tell the parents, you know, that, hey, this is healthy as well. It's like you have this hyping up the kids and whatnot, but then at the end of the commercial, you get that little wink that it's like, yeah, it's a healthy thing as well. It's not just. I think this one actually has. I don't know if it's them. Someone has the saying that it's not just good, it's good for you. I'm gonna look that. I think that actually might be Honey Nut Cheerios. I can't remember. It might be something completely else, but I remember that. I very specifically remember that. It's not just good, it's good for you. It might be I think it might be a vegetable thing. But yeah, it was still that they still do that same thing of along the same lines of, hey, it's not just good, it's good for you. The funny thing is, so like I said, this is 60s or 70s. This is 70s when Honey Nut Cheerios came out, because they already had Cheerios, but then, you know, they brought out Honey Nut Cheerios. Cheerios doesn't have a mascot, but Honey Nut Cheerios does, of course, because they have honey in them. So you bring in Buzz, and I have to say, honestly, looking at Buzz in the 70s, he's very much like I would go to a high school, literally any high school, and he would be their mascot. Tell me that does not look like literal like high school mascot art, like old high school mascot art. I will say, so there are so many of them that, you know, they used to be this whole pleasant thing, you know, high school mascots, but then they moved on to this, we have to be the scariest looking one. Not the scary, but like intimidating. We have to look intimidating for these people. But a lot of high school mascots, and I've seen someone posted that like over the years, like this is what our high school mascot looked like over time. They went from this like really let me see. For like it's from like from friendly to intimidating. Like that's which is kind of amusing to me. I'm trying to see, because I remember this very specific thing in my mind, like a very specific post that someone made that was literally, this is our high school mascot from like the past, you know, for like the past 50 years or whatnot, because they had I guarantee you go into, like, if you're in high school now or whatnot, or you were to go back to your old high school, they'd have like a, here is our high school, this is our mascot for like however many years ago. And I will say, a lot of them start off as like creepy as hell, creepy realistic, and then they move on to that cartoony thing. You know, they move on to that cartoony thing that's like, that we're just like happy, cartoony, everyone's great at this high school, and then they move on to intimidating. I can't find a good example right now, but I think people probably know what I'm talking about. Especially like actual mascots, like not just like the art of mascots, but like our actual, like, we're going to a football game or whatever, so here's whatever mascot you have for your school, whatever person that, you know, dresses up as the mascot and messes around and cheers everyone up and all that sort of stuff. I like him. He's very simple. He gets the point across. It's like, yeah, that's a bee. That's a happy bee. And that's the hard thing to do, because a lot of people, you know, they do not equate bees immediately with honey. So I think he actually does a good job. I think he very easily earns he pretty easily earns a B tier. No, but yeah, he very easily earns a B tier, because he's very, you know, he's very happy. He's very well done. This one is very specifically from '79, so they changed him up just a little bit, but he's still pretty much the same. Actually, I think he's, oh no, okay. That was one of the things that I was looking at him, was like, he's no longer wearing clothing. No, he is wearing clothes. But yeah, he's a wholesome, sweetened, toasted oat cereal with crushed nuts and honey. That's the thing, is they wanted to go wholesome, nice, you know, that sort of thing. And they stuck with it. And then they kind of moved back with him. They played around with these two guys within the 80s and 90s. And then 2000s, this is the like beginning of this Buzz the Bee, where he was very, like, he was a little bit more detailed, a little bit more modernized, but I like him. He's that's what I know, and that's basically what they've kept him as. They kept him as that for a long time, as far as I know. I mean, so this is I'm gonna throw up the today. Yeah, he's honestly, he went just basically from being 2D to 3D. He's very well done. He's honestly, the 3D, sometimes you don't need 3D. Not all the time. So what I'm thinking is today 3D, not necessary, but honestly, Buzz the Bee, you see him, he makes you want to eat cereal. He makes you want to eat a healthy cereal is the thing, like a healthier cereal rather than like literally all the other ones I have on this list. But he makes you want to eat that cereal, and you see the video, or you see the commercials with Buzz the Bee, and he's like talking to the kids, because that's what like so many cereal commercials are, is whatever mascot speaking to kids, because that's what he's doing. He's trying to sell, hey, here's my nice healthy cereal, which I've just realized is actually really creepy. But I think honestly, but that's the thing is, like I said, Buzz the Bee gives bees a good rep. So him, honestly, I would give him an A tier. He does really well at selling the cereal. If I were to, like I said, if I were to walk down the cereal aisle, that's still one that I eat today. I still eat Honey Nut Cheerios today. I don't like Cheerios. Cheerios are just bland. They're just bland. Next up, I have Captain Crunch. So actually that's the wrong one. So Captain Crunch also started back in the 60s. That was the thing that I realized, is that for some reason, a lot of these really sugary cereals started in the 60s. Like they were really, really experimenting with sugary cereals in the 60s. So this is 60s Captain Crunch. And honestly, pretty good guy. Free comic book inside. You can tell he's whatever sailor. He's a nice looking dude. They changed him up a little bit for 70s. He actually looks a little bit older in the 70s. He looks more, I guess, wise for some reason. Why a cereal mascot has to look wise. But this is our 70s Captain Crunch. 80s Captain Crunch, he's a little bit more animated, a little bit, I wouldn't say more detailed, they just changed him up a little bit. They did change his eye styling, I noticed that. Captain Crunch, however, is one that I noticed when I was going through these. So, 90s, that was the first one that I pulled up. Looks exactly like our 80s Captain Crunch. And then even still, so this is a commercial Captain Crunch from the 2000s. Looks so much like our box art Captain Crunch. And then there's today. The Captain Crunch, they went through with the 3D thing. I don't know why. I feel like he doesn't need to be 3D, especially if he's on a box. You can do 3D for the commercials, but he doesn't need to be 3D on the box. But Crunch, that just reminds me of a very silly comic. I have to find it. Not stealing whoever, it's a comic done by Last Place Comics. It's absolutely, it's stupid and hilarious, and I found it amusing when I first saw it. But honestly, Captain Crunch stayed relatively the same. He stayed very much the same throughout the years. They were like one and done. He looks great. Like, even his little, whatever you'd want to call them, I don't know what those are necessarily called on the uniform. They stayed basically the same. And he's always just been, I actually did notice, for a while, he didn't have the big old C. He didn't have the big old C on his hat. But honestly, I feel like that's not necessarily, it's not too necessary. I think he's a good character. Definitely does make me want to, like, eat the cereal. He's like, I eat this cereal and I'm gonna be a strong Navy man or something, you know? Oh, actually, no, he did have a C in the 60s, but he lost the C for some reason. He was a little bit more, they did change some of his detailing up. He's I think he's a good guy. Honestly, every single one of, for consistency and whatnot, and making me want to eat the cereal, I think Captain Crunch overall earns S tiers all around. So, like I said, I was doing the beginning 60s, then 90s to 2000s for my age, and then the only thing for me that gets this, that would slightly change this, is the 3D. But honestly, with this one, it's not as it doesn't feel as in your face. And like if I were to put it next to next to Apple Jacks, it's not as frightening. He's still a very welcoming man. So still all around for Captain Crunch, y'all did wonderful. I do love me a bowl of Crunch Berries. I will say that. My family, everyone that lives in this house is like above the age of 18, and yet we still have like some, what you'd call like whatever children's cereals. Okay, next up we have Cinnamon Toast Crunch. This one changed a little bit. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, however, didn't start until a little bit later. Didn't come around until the 80s, but there were changes made. So we start off here with Wendell. Wendell is the guy in the middle who we come to know, and we've had for, ever now. He's always been, the baker. He's the guy that makes the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, who is also, he's a very inviting chap who, you definitely look at him and he reminds you of like the baker from Shrek. the Muffin Man from Shrek, or things like that. Grandfatherly figure. And you're definitely like, I would love to eat this Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then you've got his two whatever baker friends. I don't know if they have names. Let me see. Okay, yeah, he did. So, Bob and Quelo. I've got to say, that's probably Quelo and that's probably Bob, or, whatever. But they very suddenly, there were the animated mascots that, like I said, these Cinnamon Toast Crunch is actually a very new one. I clicked on it. There's one of these things that says the case of the missing Cinnamon Toast Crunch bakers, because that's the thing. After the 80s, you never see his sidekicks ever again. It just goes back. It just goes down to Wendell. And we've got Wendell gummies, and that just. Those seems like a flavor clash. I mean, I guess it's one of those, if you throw them in your lunchbox or something, if it's like a packet of them. But still, Wendell gives off that like wholesome baker vibe. And until that was literally one of the things, is I'm looking at Cinnamon Toast Crunch and I'm going, okay, this is a great, cereal. Because he was very specifically looking for those cereals that have mascots to them. And seeing that, I was like, huh, that's strange. And then we move on to Modern Wendell. Modern Wendell, they gave him that 3D makeover. This is actually, Modern Wendell. He's that sort of, I don't know. I don't really like modern Wendell. He doesn't give off as comforting grandpa vibes as like the 80s Wendell or even the 90s Wendell, because even 90s Wendell has that, you know, the rosy red cheeks and nose and whatnot that you'd see in like old Disney movies, where it's like we're trying to get across that this character is a good man and what he's some trusting grandfatherly figure, that sort of thing. Modern Wendell looks like he's actually like finally starting to crack and realizing what he's done to his other bakers. And then if you remember, we've moved over. Wendell, if I remember right, is still on. Let me look it up. I have to make sure that I'm correct. So it doesn't look like he's on any of them anymore. They finally got rid of Wendell off of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch packaging. But and they fully moved on to our Crazy Squares, which is what those guys are called. I remember Wendell. I liked Wendell. I guess I'm in that weird period of them being between Wendell and the Crazy Squares. The Crazy Squares, it was always, you know, a funny commercial to watch. And they did it so well of like look at the like crumbs and whatnot that they made from eating each other. And it was even one of those things as a kid, you watch it and you're like, okay, these guys are actually cannibalizing each other, but I don't care because it's amusing. It's funny to watch these guys eat each other because that just shows how delicious they are. So I'm gonna go with, and I do have to say they did change the Crazy Squares as well. The Crazy Squares are no longer like that, like you'd see, because the Crazy Squares from the box art and the commercials were very much the same, but they did change what the Crazy Squares looked like. They have tres leches. What? I'm gonna have to try and find that. They have tres leches toast crunch. Yeah, they changed them, and now they're. The funny thing is, they actually made the Crazy Squares more cartoony. Let me see if I can find a good one. Because they did change the Crazy Squares into a more cartoony appearance. I guess that's... hopefully this image. So they did make them all into a much more cartoony cartoony thing. These are the guys that like started it off, but then they made them into these. These guys are actually cute little characters. I do like these for being the modern ones. So far out of all of the modern ones, these ones these aren't bad. I actually quite like these little guys. So early Wendell, I like him. He makes me. He feels like he's gonna, you know, instead of me just having this like cold bowl of cereal, it feels like I'm gonna have like an actual like nice, warm, like bakery, like what's nice, something nice and warm from the bakery. Early Wendell, easy A. But since they transitioned from Wendell the Nightmare, I think that's what happened. Wendell just absolutely cracked and they had to get rid of him. Since Wendell cracked and looks kind of like those guys, I have to put him down there. But the Crazy Squares, I will always love the Crazy Squares. Seeing them and their little antics was always amusing. Like I said, they looked exactly the same as the box art that they did on the commercials. And honestly, I am, like I said, I am such a stickler for rebranding. When it comes to rebranding, I hate so much rebranding because I'm one of those, you you rebrand to modernize things, and I'm like, why? It was fine how it was before. It looked great. Everyone recognized it and whatnot. And I'm like, who are you trying to appeal to? The people that you're now modernizing it for are not even 1 year old yet. But these little guys, I do have to say, they're actually they kind of take out a little bit of the cannibalistic vibes that our early Crazy Squares had, but they still are fun little, like, guys. Like, I feel like I would sit there while eating my Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the morning, and I feel like I'd be spinning the box looking for all them. And I feel like they would definitely also have, like, they'd have activities on the box. That's a thing too. I could have ranked them on at the, like, whether or not they'd have activities on the box. So I like these guys. The new little guys, kind of smushed now, but I think they're doing their predecessors proud. Next up, we are on to, so this is a very specific one. And it's very, very, very strange and specific, and you have to kind of just deal with it because they don't have it all year round. So having Count Chocula and Frankenberry and Booberry and, like, I don't think, I think they got rid of, if I remember right, they did change some of these. They're no longer, like, Yummy Mummy no longer exists. These are from the 70s and 80s. But, they're literally only Halloween time cereals. But I love them. They're great guy. They're, like, great to see. You look at them and you're like, I absolutely want this. And if it's, like, that time of the year and you see them out and you're like, Mom, can we get a box of, like, Count Chocula or Frankenberry or whatever? Honestly, I can't remember having really eaten any of them. Honestly, because it was just one of those, you had whatever we were eating, but apparently these guys also came with activities and whatnot. I'm trying to remember if there were... These guys are they stand out, because it's definitely one of those, since they are around one time a year, during a certain time, you walk down the cereal aisle and you're like, holy crap, there's Count Chocula or whatever. I had to kind of put them in a category of their own because they're just so strange. They're okay, so they did have commercials for them as well. Yeah, they did have commercials for these guys. Oh, and they look pretty much what you'd think. Except whatever the hell that was. I'm just zooming through a YouTube video of, like, putting them all together. At one point, they had, like, live action versions of them. I like them, and like I said, they have that staying power that literally every year, once a year, without fail, General Mills puts out their, Halloween like ones, and I think every couple of years they'll slip out one of them, and slip out one of, like, the other ones, and put in the another. So, but, like, every year you're always gonna have Count Chocula, Booberry, and Frankenberry because those are just, like, the known three. But you have, like, Fruit Brute and Fruity Yummy Mummy. Those have changed. There's, like, some form of, I think she's a zombie. There's another one that's a zombie, if I remember correctly. I mean, even their changed characters look still like their modernized characters still look pretty good. And the funny thing is they look like laid back dudes. And then so many people try and ride on, Carmela Creeper. Yeah, she's some, I don't know what, she didn't even look like a monster. She just looks like, I don't know what she is. But so many people then try and ride on those coattails of those Halloween cereals that are definitely gonna sell like a crap load during that time, which is kind of funny because it's like, depending on who they're owned by, if they're, because all the Halloween cereal, these specific Halloween cereals are owned by General Mills, whether or not they're like, they do Halloween versions of their other cereals. But I think those guys, since they have such a staying power in history, they're easily S tier. They make you want to eat it. They make you want to like do the activities. They're definitely like the thing of the fact that they're literally only once a year, and they haven't changed much, honestly. Next we have Honey Smacks. So Honey Smacks was honestly not one that I was thinking of too much when I was doing my research, but Honey Smacks actually started off as Sugar Smacks, and they had, and this is the 50s to 60s, so I have a couple of different ones. So they started off with a seal and a like a clown and whatnot. They did kind of the same thing that Apple Jacks did with those sorts of different things, and then after a while they moved on to the Hanna-Barbera characters in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. But that was a kind of a popular thing at the time, was having those sorts of things. But it took us a while to finally get to the Diggum Frog. The Diggum Frog is now the Honey Smacks, like their mascot. They finally decided to settle on the Diggum Frog. Okay, so this is, so like I said, Hanna-Barbera characters, so Quick Draw McGraw, and they had some other characters on their boxes and whatnot. This one was realizing that there were a lot of different, this is early 70s, I don't know about that one, it's kind of confusing. They finally, like, they were Sugar Smacks for so long. They really were. They were, let's picture them again. Is it the, okay, no, let's dig them. And then for a while we had a Honey Bear when, like, we moved it over to Honey Smacks, but then, and that was 86. 86 is when they moved it over to Honey Smacks. But from when they got rid of him, they finally moved on to back to our Diggum Frog, who we've had literally from then on. And he's not really changed much, because when you have a frog design, they kind of stay the same. I hate the... I'm okay. I like this seal. If my mom were to bring home a box of Sugar Smacks with like this seal on it, I'd be like, cool, we got those. That's just one of those. No, that's another one of those. I'd open the cereal cabinet, scream, and slam it shut. And like I said, I'm not even afraid of clowns. Can you think of presenting that to someone that's afraid of clowns? They would freak out. I think having like the clowns and whatnot, since I said they had so many different characters, but I'm gonna try and judge them based on the Diggum frog, he works well. Don't really know what Diggum has to do with Honey Smacks. I will say if they had stayed like with the bear, that makes sense. That makes sense. You go and watch cartoons and whatnot, and they always have, you know, like a bear trying to get honey and those sorts of things. What the Diggum frog has to do with honey, I have zero clue. Zero clue. So, and the fact that they just bounced around so much, kind of gives me, you know, Applejack vibes. That sort of they couldn't settle. So, I'm just gonna keep the one Diggum frog there, and that is going to represent all of Sugar Smacks and Honey Smacks. And I will say I like them. I like Honey Smacks, but I'm not like they definitely wouldn't be one of my go-to cereals. Okay, next up we have Lucky the Leprechaun from Lucky Charms. Everyone knows him. They're after me, Lucky Charms. I actually managed to grab this one. So this is 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So he did kind of go through a rebranding over time, but they kept it as Lucky. They kept it as Lucky the Leprechaun, which is pretty cool. I'm assuming this $21.95 is because someone was selling like a box from the 90s as like a memorabilia thing. That was actually a thing I saw a lot of. That's apparently a thing, is people collecting those sorts of things. They kept those, like they keep them, they like flatten them out and keep them as, I don't know why, it's just a strange thing. I do have to say 60s Lucky he's a little bit weird. He doesn't necessarily make me want to eat Lucky Charms. He kind of makes me feel like he's gonna, like, I don't know, sit on my chest and force feed me Lucky Charms. He doesn't necessarily get to that whole feeling of he's like, here I'm Lucky the Leprechaun, here Lucky Charms, until we get to that 70s, which is this guy. But I do have to say, for consistency, because like even here is our 2000s Lucky the Leprechaun, looks exactly the same as the 90s Lucky the Leprechaun. And then even today, again, they just kind of modernized him a little bit, but he's still pretty similar. Like they finally colored in his eyes. I think, yeah, this Lucky actually does have blue eyes. So they just they modernized him a little bit, and they brought in characteristics from the old Lucky the Leprechaun and made him new. So honestly, overall, Lucky the Leprechaun, for that same thing with but like that I had with Buzz the Bee, for that lovely consistency, I think you're a little bit more consistent than yeah, you're a good A tier. For the only thing that throws you just a little bit is 60s Lucky, is because Lucky the Leprechaun from the 60s kind of freaks me out. I'm gonna get rid of 2000s Lucky because he looks exactly the same as the 90s Lucky. But modern day Lucky, like I said, he's very much, they mashed up and kind of took bits and pieces from each generation of Lucky the Leprechaun and made him, you know, more. And of course, you walk down the same thing. You walk down the cereal aisle, you see Lucky Charms, you recognize Lucky Charms, like, I want to eat those. Okay, next up is Rice Krispies. So if you don't know, the Rice Krispies mascots are Snap, Crackle, and Pop. They're like little elves or whatever, that basically that they were named after the sounds that Rice Krispies make when you pour milk into them. This is like a long time from the beginning to I don't know when. Definitely not the 2000s, because this is the Snap, Crackle, and Pop I recognize, which is these guys, which are definitely a lot friendlier. And I do notice, so these guys are creepy as hell. But they do have consistency, except it looks like in the beginning, because Rice Krispies, out of all of them, is out of all of the ones I have, is the oldest, because Rice Krispies came around in the 20s. So they have staying power. I'll give you that. They have staying power. And they've changed just a little bit. Like these guys, I'd say they look a little bit different. They went from, because it kind of this design of them, they don't look exactly like what Snap, Crackle, and Pop have been, which is like I don't know what you'd call them. Snap is definitely, he's a chef. What Crackle and Pop are, I have no idea. Well, I'd say Pop is like, he's like maybe a marching band, like he's an instrumentalist of some sort. What Crackle is, I've got no idea. But then I will say, this was one of the things that I saw this. This is a modern day Snap, Crackle, and Pop in commercials, and good God, it is horrifying. But we're not here for the commercials. Though sometimes, like I said, the commercials have been fairly similar, or they've definitely been like, they make me want to eat that cereal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of our modern day box art. And honestly, they kind of have a strange realm of their own, because they very much have just been like, you know what, we have had these guys for so long, and we've just kept them, and we've changed them a little bit every once in a while. I feel like they probably fit around with Buzz. Next up, okay, Tony the Tiger. So Tony the Tiger is probably one of the out of all of them, he's not really he's changed some, but he's also, I would say he's probably one of the most recognizable cereal mascots. So this is him in the 1950s when Frosted Flakes came out. He's not that bipedal. Well, actually, he is on the box art. But I kind of like this design. It's a little bit strange. It gives me a little bit of Alice in Wonderland vibes, but he still has that. At this point, I guess they're not great. They're great. That thing. But he's a good guy. I like him. Then you go to our 60s. That was the thing for me, was going and seeing, this is a commercial. This is a commercial for Frosted Flakes. Why he had it's kind of amusing that they have him in the 60s commercials with these like sharp, like fang-like teeth, which is like, you don't necessarily need to. I mean, yeah, I get it, he's a tiger, but you don't need to. He's very much a character that has stayed around and stayed pretty much, we hit the 70s and he stayed pretty much like the same since then. Apparently the box art changed, but he's gone on to look very much like the similar, but that's also been, there are so many different commercials for Frosted Flakes or just Tony the Tiger in other things. And then we reach our finale for Chad, Tony the Tiger, or like buff bipedal guy. He's like, what would I say? He's got that weird Dorito body that they designed some character, like Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles, that they build some characters off of. That whole let me I'll show you. You probably know what I'm talking about, but you see them and it's like that strong torso, but for some reason they got little legs. This is the same thing. he's got that strong torso, that big strong torso, but really little legs. I guess Tony the Tiger just got up on his hind legs and got too used to it. I like modern day Tony. He's been the exact same for years. This one's actually from the 90s, but he hasn't changed. He still hasn't changed. He's recognizable. I guarantee that's the weirdest thing in our household is we'll get a lot of different types of cereals, but I think Frosted Flakes stays among them pretty consistently. So first Tony, very interesting. He reminds me of a like a children's book character. Like I said, he's got that weird Alice in Wonderland quality to him. And I love him. And if the little box art, he has a little cub, and look at the cub. He's so freaking cute. I love him. He does. It is great. He is great. Tony the Tiger, in I think every realm, pretty easily wins an S tier. Because I don't know. See, that's the thing is, I'd have to travel. I'd have to travel the world and like see other countries, see what their cereals are like and whatnot. And if see, that's the thing. So I know breakfast cereal is not a super common thing worldwide. I know, we have it here in America because we were very much like, we want something quick and convenient for breakfast. That's why we have that. That's why we have Pop-Tarts, those sorts of things. But then you have other countries that will like, no, we don't do that. We take our time with breakfast and those sorts of things. And, we work on that. Next up is Toucan Sam from Fruit Loops. So this is our 60s Toucan Sam. Wait, what? Frey Oopsley? What? I just noticed that when so he actually kept that, if I remember right, I was looking at it, that little headdress thing for a while, which is kind of amusing. This is 70s, very early cartoon style. That's very much like what the cartoons looked like at the time. You know what? Toucan Sam very much followed the cartoons of the time, what they looked like. I'll give him that. And so it's very much one of those like, I'm eating whatever's on my screen. So that's the 90s. And then we end up with the 2000s. That's the guy that I'm used to. 2000s Toucan Sam. And then we have a couple of them that I picked up for today. Today meaning our new. So this is him compared to him. So he did change a little bit on the box art. And he's a little bit strange in my opinion. He does look a little bit weird. I think it's this. He has this weird thing with his mouth that's like pulled up partially over his eye. He's also got a lot more colors. So I just noticed that he's got a whole bunch more colors in his beak. And every other early generation of Toucan Sam, he just had like the 4 colors or whatever you would want to specify it as. And then they threw in a couple more colors there. And then there was this, if it'll pop up. This thing is... Okay, it's so horrifying that it's haunting my freaking my computer. That... I hate that. I hate that so much. That's the, like, today for commercials, one. Honestly, though, Toucan, like I said, he stayed pretty consistent, especially since he stayed with the cartoons of the times. He very much stayed looking like, this is what our cartoons look like at the time. So, even the box art for Toucan Sam today, not bad. This is, there we go, so there's 60s, 2000s today. I mean, okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, they actually did. So his beak was much different back in the 60s. I mean, Toucan Sam altogether was very different in the 60s. But he was interesting, but then he became very suddenly and very quickly, very suddenly was like, okay, this is what Toucan Sam looks like. We just kind of changed his style to look like what the, whatever cartoons of today, and then they finally were like, okay, we can make him look not like those cartoons. I like this little guy. He's interesting. 60s Toucan Sam, I'd say he's a good B tier. Shortening his beak. Okay. 2000s. It's very. I mean, there's always the whole thing of like, how does Toucan Sam's mouth work? I think that was always a thing with everyone. Actually, I think that he stopped having a like reasonable working beak in the 60s. 2000s Toucan Sam, again, he works just... I think he very much represents every single year of Toucan Sam since the 60s. So he gets a good A tier. I don't know what it is about this one. I think it's... They started, like, he looks semi 3D, which is one of the bits that throws me off. There's just something about him that just, I don't know why. Which would make me want to put him in a C tier. Last one that I have today is Trix cereal. So Trix cereal, if you did not know, is they made the Trix cereal and it started off in '59. This was the rabbit back then. It's always had a rabbit. It's how it always had a fairly similar looking rabbit. Literally, so that's 50s. And he stayed very much the same throughout the 50s and 60s. Then they had like a stuffed rabbit on it for a while, which I don't know why that one is kind of confusing. This is the 70s. 80s, they finally broke into more animated style. Right, well, rather they went back towards that animated style. 90s looks very much the same as 80s. And then 2000s, here's our box art, which again is pretty similar as the other guys. And then Today, which is still very similar. They just got him in a different position. So honestly, they very much have been consistent with Trix. And also here's the other real celebrity. This is the Cinnabon. It's kind of confusing because, so this bunny's, its name is actually Cinnabon, which is like one of the Trix mascot was when they, let me see when Cinnabon, because, you know, Cinnabon obviously can't be super old. Oh, apparently, so they did have him on, like some art. So he was some box art for a little while. The funny thing is okay, maybe this was Houston-based bunny Cinnabon named as new Trix rabbit. So I guess they have like just a company rabbit, I guess. That's kind of amusing. The real but temporary. So they did this, I guess, sort of a PR sort of thing in 2016, when he won the spot over 2,500 other rabbits. Wow. The rabbit took a limousine. Okay, this is sort of a quick rundown of this. So, Houston-based bunny named Cinnabon won the spot over 7,500 other rabbits who entered them into the contest. Once the runt of his litter, the 2-pound Holland Lop bunny, took a limousine to the unveiling of the limited edition box featuring his likeness with his owner, Natalie, the red carpet event was held at Cinnabon's hometown Kroger grocery store. So basically, he was a temporary little guy that they had for marketing purposes. They were like, you know what, let's get an actual rabbit up in here. But the fact that 7,500 other people entered in rabbits and the one named Cinnabon one is kind of amusing to me, because Trix is a fruity cereal. Like, it's a fruit flavored cereal. And also the fact that the rabbit took a limousine is hilarious to me. But he's great. But honestly, Trix has stayed very much the same. It's the Trix rabbit, very commonly known as the silly rabbit or the Trix rabbit. If I remember, he doesn't actually have a name. It is just the Trix rabbit or the silly rabbit. But then they had then they had Cinnabon, who was just a character for a little while. But I think honestly, for that sort of thing, it's exactly the same as like a lot of the others. Would make me wanna. He fits along with Lucky the Leprechaun, Toucan Sam. They've stayed the same for a lot of like the time that they've existed. So those are the ones that I have for today. If you have any other cereals that you would like to put in here, go ahead and put them down in the comments below. Again, we're still looking for more creepypastas for that second part of that. I would love to rank your guys' favorite creepypastas. I'm also fully open to other suggestions for weird tier lists. And like I said, these guys were just some of them amongst the many other cereal mascots that we have. But if you do actually want me to do something such as like a taste test of something or something along those lines, I am still looking to get my. I do have another channel that I don't have anything uploaded on yet, which will be, cooking, eating, all those sorts of other things. But let me know down in the comments below about that as well. Otherwise, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.